this story is called White Crocodile. Mark Fitzgerald was the captain of a small icebreaker ship in the Canadian Arctic Ocean. He and 6 others of his members on the 65-footer were headed back to Hudson Bay via the Hudson Strait. This trip in particular was shorter and was expected to be a fairly easy one, but Fitzgerald underestimated the thickness of the sea ice during his trip. Fitzgerald was not the type of man who worried easily. He'd sailed over 100 times through the Arctic Ocean in his life, through the empty, desolate, cold no man's land. He had no friends and hardly any family to remember. His life was primarily his job, which to a lot of people would be a place of grief, but to him, it was heart like brain surgery. He navigated most of his life with that type of attitude, though nothing could ever be too tough for the old Fitzgerald, and to all of his comrades knew. However, his cockiness didn't prepare him for what was next for him to endure. To Fitzgerald's surprise and the dismay of the crew, there was a leak in the boat. So much time had passed since it has been noticed that the ship had a significant amount of water filling the lower vessel of the ship. The amount of water entering the ship was becoming increasingly dangerous. Icebreakers sinking was a very rare issue, and a situation Fitzgerald never fully thought he would have to address. Of course, he and his crew, with their long-time experience, have had plenty of drills on situations such as these. However, no number of drills and preparations could make the weight of the stress and bewilderment any less overwhelming. A lot of men such as Fitzgerald himself live their lives never picturing such things happening to them, but only to other people. Fitzgerald and his crew's dread sunk even deeper when they realised they'd have to evacuate the ship, stranded in such a harsh, desolate and hopeless place. Fitzgerald and his crew boarded a small lifeboat from the ship, desperate to find the closest ice raft big enough to fit all 7 souls. When they did, it was almost a relief. All 7 men exited the small boat and onto the ice raft, where they were able to pull their small boat onto the raft with them. Fitzgerald made sure to bring some necessities from the shipwreck: a small tent, fire starter, portable stove, flares, packaged food and water, some extra clothes, and a first aid kit. It was midday, and all 7 men sat on the raft floating in the middle of the Arctic Ocean. Taken in view was their abandoned ship, sinking ship about a mile away. Their griefs gave way to acceptance of the possible deaths, and the fact they were stranded in such a place no human was meant to be. As he sat, taking in the infinite expanse of ice and water, Fitzgerald grew tired of sitting and decided to walk around the small icy island, exploring the only thing that separating them from the -2 degrees Celsius water. At the other end of the raft, Fitzgerald discovered the remains of a huge skeleton. The only thing that came to his mind was some type of pinniped. The rest of the crew had warmed up some of their food on their portable stove. Fitzgerald made his way to join his men, not mentioning this discovery in fear of worrying it through. They ate, talked, joked and laughed, despite their impending doom of being condemned to the icy hell around them. The winds picked up and sent unforgiving cold right through them. Cold that penetrated their bones. Fitzgerald began to worry as he felt a tingling numbness in his toes. If only he and his comrades had appropriate kindling for a fire, he contemplated lighting the extra clothes he brought, the crew and himself, and fire to help avoid frostbite. However, these concerns soon grew minuscule. The men noticed some distance away a white figure bobbing in the water. Fitzgerald got up and walked to the edge of the raft to try and get a better look, but the object disappeared before his eyes. He walked back to sit with his crew, who asked him what the mysterious figure was, but he had no comfortable answer. The figure appeared once again, out of the water, and onto an ice raft 100 feet away. Now the men can clearly see a polar bear. The men were terrified, stranded in a place they aren't supposed to be, up against a beast they were never meant to win against. The ice bear, the ancient beast his purpose is to kill, and to kill he is flawless at, stared intently at the 7 vulnerable men. The beast jumped off his ice raft and plunged back in the water, resurfacing on another neighbouring ice raft, now 60 feet away. The bear stared at his weak and vulnerable prey. All the men could do is stare back in horror. The bear plunged back into the ocean and resurfaced on another neighbouring ice raft, much closer this time. Now the killing machine was only 20 feet from the men. Standing tall, on its front paws, the bear sniffed the air and again stared coldly at the 7 men. The men stared back at the beast's emotionless, small black eyes. They gathered closer together, forming a sort of huddle, as if that would do them any good. It felt like an eternity as the 7 men stared back at the bear's fixed gaze on them. It was as if they were looking at death itself, right in the eyes. Never in their lives have either of the men felt so weak, fragile and helpless. There, not too far away, with only a small amount of water separating him from the men, stood a beast that could do anything it possibly pleased to its 7 little victims. The eternal stillness finally was broken as the bear plunged back into the water. As Gerald and his men jumped, they all huddled together in the middle of the raft, not knowing when and where the creature of death could possibly reappear next. Hearts pounding and trembling, it felt like an eternity as Fitzgerald and his comrades constantly looked in every direction, continuing to see nothing but moving water and ice all around them, with no predator in sight. For a second, a glimmer of hope arose in Fitzgerald's mind. Maybe, just maybe, the bear lost interests. This was of course deception, an evolutionary flaw in the human mind to deny the inevitable reality. As soon as any of the men finished their last breaths, the man-eater returned, climbing onto their ice raft. Running faster than any of the men can react, the beast grabbed Fitzgerald by the top of his cranium and ran with Fitzgerald in his mouth, plunging back into the ocean. The beast climbed onto a neighbouring ice raft some 10 feet away with Fitzgerald and began to eat him alive. The now 6 men could only watch as the bear chomped away on their friend, pulling his intestines and other organs out of his body with ease. The beast was totally content, while his meal kicked and fumed in pain at the top of his lungs. Contrary to the 6 men, they were deeply troubled by the screams, squelching, head crunching of bone, and a wriggling bloody mass of torn up flesh that used to be their captain. However, the men could also not look away. It was as if the beast itself forced them into a trance, only to torment them and take their souls. The screaming eventually stopped. The bear finished chewing on his last piece of meat. All that remained on the island next to them was blood, stained ice, and bits and pieces of scattered flesh and bone. The beast lied content in the middle where the mess is made. His white fur now also stained a nice crimson colour. Some chunks of matter hung and fell from the animal's face. He was a messy eater. The beast just stared at the 6 men who sat helplessly on the ice raft beside him, stared intently at his now defeated living prey. All the men could do in their tower was return the gaze. That one was called the white crocodile.